In today's clip, I'm going to address why house hacking, or as older folks call it, getting a roommate, is a great way to get to fire. Heyo, XenPuck here. So first I want to congratulate whichever kid made house hacking into a real term. Boy, that sounds cool and awesome, doesn't it? See, when I hear it, I imagine someone with a pickaxe literally hacking away at a house to discover the wondrous treasures within. Oh wait, that's not what it is it? Okay, it's just getting a roommate or two. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I wanted to get the definition out of the way. What is house hacking? Well, if you're in a single-family house or any apartment without separate entrances, then literally house hacking equals the same old tried and true formula since mankind discovered community, which is getting a roommate or two. Okay. Now, obviously there are slightly more advanced versions of this, so, you know, if you buy a multiplex and rent out all the other units, those people wouldn't quite be your roommates, but more like housemates, or complex mates, straight up tenants. This is obviously a more professional relationship, but I'd imagine if you live in the same complex or house as 3 or 4 other units, you'd get to know whoever lived there pretty well over time. So what I'm about to say about roommates still would apply, right? And what I'm about to say on the subject is simply that this is one of the best ways to accelerate your fire journey, right? It's not required, but it certainly helps. Here's a bunch of reasons why, right? Number 1. Getting a roommate or two is great when you're first starting out, okay? Sure, there are exceptions for those of you who started your careers in banking or consultancies or any such fabulous paying jobs right out of the gate. But those are the minor minorities of people, right? Like my wife, but certainly wasn't me, right? I had barely paying an okay job, right, for my first job and even second job. So guess what? I dived right into having roommates, despite our total apartment size still being well below average size, right? One of my personal pet peeves about the financial media is that they often compare for any particular location the local minimum wage with average family-sized living accommodations. That makes literally no sense, right? Not only should people on the lower income scale not be living in average-sized family-sized accommodations, they should be looking for housing that they can easily afford, which in most cities implies that you need roommates, okay? Look, I totally get, you know, having the, not having the apartment of one's dreams sucks, right? And almost no one's apartment in a city looks like the ones from TV shows like Friends, right? Like ever. Certainly not when you're in your 20s. And please recall, even most of the Friends cast, you know, the characters on the show actually had roommates, right? What's important about getting roommates, aka house hacking, is that it lowers one's financial stress significantly, since housing is almost always the biggest expense in any young person's budget, right? You can save money by not buying Starbucks all month, every day if you want, and it still won't be nearly enough to make up the difference between wanting to live in a one-bedroom apartment by yourself or a bigger apartment and sharing it with like multiple roommates. That's just a cold hard truth, all right? If you want to save some money and start off your financial journey on the right note, get roommates. It's a must, okay? Number 2. I get a lot of complaints about roommates specifically is that people have had bad experiences with roommates, right? Probably because whatever happened in college, right? I got a real quick rebuttal to that. Well, now you get to pick who you want, right, as an adult. And the commitment is usually not longer than a year, usually, right, on leases, right? And maybe some people are even bad at picking roommates, even as adults, right, and have had a bad experience with that as well. To that I say, oh boy, honestly, this is a real life skill that we should all work on, even if we're bad at it, right? If you know you're bad at something, you can't just ignore it, right? What you should do is practice until you're better at it, right? The skill really is being able to read people and learning how to interview and screen them, right? This is useful not just in the realm of, you know, context of finding a roommate for accommodations, but also at work, right? Like eventually you're gonna have to interview other people, right? For your own colleagues or for your actual workers, right? If you're a boss. And also the skill, still important personally, in how to find a life partner too, right? So I think finding a good roommate is a great practice run for just general life experience, right? Sure, you might get a lemon or two, but the reality is that you might also get a great friend or confidant out of it, right? I know I've been pretty lucky in my life, so maybe that's why I'm a little biased, but every single one of my roommates of longer than a year has turned out to be great friends of mine. So yeah, it's really not that hard, okay? And I don't even claim to be a great people reader, certainly not when I was younger. So it can be done and it can be great. So don't let other people's anecdotal evidence deter you, right? Thirdly, I should also mention that for me, at least, as an only child, having roommates has actually forced me to learn how to be more adaptable in how I conduct myself, in a domestic environment, right? Because choosing a roommate is a two-way street, right? We screen for who we think we'd get along with, but so does the other party, right? Learning to adapt to a stranger or perhaps like a regular friend into a roommate situation should be educational for just general personal development, right? After all, this will actually help prepare most people to compromise and work out things like cleaning schedules and all that domestic stuff that young people don't care about. But real adults should. Hey, personal example. I've literally had to tell my later roommates to tell me when to clean, because I learned from my very first roommate that if I didn't say that, if no one tells me to clean, I will forget. It's not that I'm against the task of cleaning, I'm just kind of klutzy and absent-minded about it, right? So live and learn, right? And finally, just remember that house hacking or getting a roommate is not a permanent thing, right? Now that you've saved your money, you need to put that to use. Invest it smartly, right? Now, if you save money on accommodations and all you do is use the difference and blow it on booze and parties, well then you might be house hacking forever, right? That's the thing. It's a powerful technique, especially if you can get to that multiplex stage, obviously, right? Basically, essentially, the more roommates you can squeeze into the accommodations that you're responsible for, the more money you can save and could be investing the difference of, right? Obviously, the more roommates you have, the more work and complexity in relationships and more upkeep that comes with it, right? So every person just needs to find their own balance, right? But don't forget, the peripheral benefit is that you might actually get some really great lifelong friends out of it. I know I did. And while I know I'm pretty darn lucky, I know some of you can make it too, right? So don't be afraid and solely driven by necessity. Roommates isn't a dirty word. And if you prefer, tell people you're house hacking and then hope they don't get that, you simply just got roommates. Okay? Till next time, check out some of my other clips in the corners above. And oh yeah, comment, subscribe, unlike, and all that stuff. Cheers.